Why is it so important for families to teach their kids about money versus their children learning about it through experience or the outside world?
Because nobody else is going to teach them. And because they're already learning by watching you anyways. So my biggest fear was I've got 5 kids, very intentional parent. I've always tried to do things differently. I've never paid allowance to any of my kids. We've always said that allowances is just creates dependency. It doesn't create any kind of innovation or kids take an initiative. But it's critical to teach your kids about money, to give them those resources and those skill sets to be successful as they grow up, because they're learning about money, but it's just not the right stuff, because they're just learning by watching you click a button and then Amazon box shows up on your doorstep the next day. Where does money come from? I don't know. My parents clicked a button and stuff showed up at the house and we got it. I don't even know how much it costs, but it showed up right away. And we have resources and means and technology that our kids have access to that we never had access to. I grew up in a pretty modest household. My parents shared a car. When I was first married, I was making $6 an hour. I was taking the public shuttle bus to work. My wife was going to college. I was a part-time student trying to finish my degree. We live in a 400 square foot apartment, downstairs basement. I joked that we could vacuum the whole place without unplugging the cord. And, we have a way different lifestyle now. That's always scared me about what are my kids going to turn out to be. So I had to probably go a little extreme on the strict side of how to teach them to be resourceful. But for them, even my 10-year-old have their own little small business. They have to pay for everything they do. They work really, really hard. So they earn their own money. They do a lot of interesting things that most kids their age have never experienced. So my daughter earned money and saved up for this 3-week humanitarian aid trip to Africa last summer. No cell phone allowed. Did not know any of the teenagers she was meeting up with. And my son just got approved for the same experience, but in India next summer. And he's going to have to fund that himself as well. So I'm very, very focused on the mission of teaching kids to be smart, not spoiled, and helping families pass on heritage, not inheritance. It's about so much more than money. It's about values. What does it mean to be a mogul? What does it mean to be a Willardson? We teach these things. We talk about these things. If you have a business plan and you have ideas for your business, you have all these goals, like, why don't you have that stuff for your family and your kids? That's how I feel about it.
So I guess just for any parent who's listening, how early can you start in instilling these types of values, this type of mindset, and then any suggestions for, even just tactical things that parents can do?
You can start way earlier than you actually think you can. You could literally talk to a 3-year-old about when you're at the grocery store, about things that you're buying, how much they cost, where did the money come from? This is why mommy went to work this week, so we can afford things like what we're having for dinner. Here's 2 items at the store. I'm going to buy this because of this reason. You can teach kids about money. I always taught them about taxes. Now, I don't eat desserts right now. I've been really healthy in the last year. But I would always take the biggest bites of my kids' food and tell them this is the dad tax, and that's a pretty common joke. One situation, we were in a restaurant, really pretty nice restaurant with the kids, and I took a huge bite of my youngest son's hamburger before he started, and he pounded the table. He was like 5 years old, and he's like, "I hate taxes," just as loud as he could, and everyone in the restaurant looked over and he just goes, "I hate him. I hate taxes." And then he put his face on the table, and it was so funny. People started laughing around us. I kind of rubbed his back and I was like, "Son, now you know how all of us feel." So I think you can do little things and teach young kids about money. It's a joke now because our kids are a little older, but you can do a lot of things to teach kids about money. You can have activities. I think the Cash Flow for Kids is a great board game. My kids have played that. I just gathered my 8-year-old and a bunch of his buddies, and we played that last week. There were probably 10 kids, most of them playing it for the first time, so it was a lot of fun.
For people that are listening, let's say they have a very different lifestyle today than the type of lifestyle, let's say, they grew up in, where now they may have a pool at their home, they stay in nice hotels. When they travel, they're doing pretty extravagant things that they, of course, have earned, but they worry, is this going to rub off on my kids? Is this going to create any sort of entitlement?
That's a lot of us in that situation, and that the risk is real. And that's why I think saying no to your kids with reasons is important. I think too often parents say yes. So I think just because you can doesn't mean you should. just because you can afford it. Now, look, I'm at this stage in my life and my business, I'm not staying in a crappy hotel. So I'm not going to like punish my wife and I so that my kids don't experience a nice hotel. I try to use it the opposite way. Hey, I'm pretty transparent about a lot of things. So it costs us this much to be here. And the kids are like, what? Yeah, this dinner cost this much tonight, or it cost this much to go to Disneyland. But this is the work that I've put in to get here. Dad, can I get this souvenir? Can I get this or that? Absolutely. You can, but you're going to have to pay for it. So you're going to have to find a way to earn some money. Here are some ways you can earn some money. So I think we need to be careful and aware. There's no way to avoid the fact that your kids are exposed to nicer things or better things than when you were a kid. That's just kind of the way it is now. I think it's the attitude that matters more. I've been told by a lot of my oldest are 19, 16, and 13. And thankfully, they're really good kids. They have sound minds. They're very grounded. My daughter, after her college basketball game last night, stayed after the game, and there was a big special needs group that came to the game. There was probably 40 adults, 18, maybe 16 to like 30 special needs age people. And she was just signing autographs and taking pictures and giving hugs to these people. I'm like, most of the players, they high-fived and then they went back to the locker room. But McKinley was out there, the last one, just signing autographs. And I was like, you know what? That's internal. Having lots of money doesn't change who you are internally. So I think focusing on who your kids are becoming is more important than how much money you have or what hotel you're staying at.
Yeah. Now there's a question. I know this is like a very divisive type question. I've seen different people have very strong-willed in how they view this, but what about passing on money to children? And just, I've seen some people that say, I'm going to pass on everything. I've heard others say, I'm not going to leave them with anything. What are your views?
I had one client back in the day tell me, if all I had left was a quarter and that was all I had left before I was about to die, I would swallow the quarter. I don't want my kids to have anything. And there's other people, we have a client who founded a nationally known business who his personal net worth is in the hundreds of millions, and he's got many kids, and his goal is to pass on not a penny. He's given it all to charity, and he's a little bit extreme on that side of being very worried that any penny passed on unearned by his kids is really going to ruin them. And there's other people who are setting up nonprofits, a foundation as a family. And what they're doing is they're having like annual family planning meetings with their teenagers. And they're saying, what charity do we really want to care about and impact this year? And one of the kids, it was their turn. They love animals. And they're like, let's focus on this charity that saves and rescues animals in harm. And so it was cool because they rallied around that daughter and they put a lot of money and resources into it. And then they went and visited with the board. The daughter, under 12, made a presentation to the nonprofit board about why they're making this big donation. So I think it's just how you handle the wealth. I don't think there's a wrong or right way. And most people have some kids that are going to be responsible and some that are going to be very irresponsible, regardless of how you train them. Like, I personally think that you can do a lot more good when the kids are younger than passing on money when they're 60 or 80 years old.
Yeah.
So I've seen cooler stuff done, like entrepreneurship family funds, or real estate or stock investment funds for the grandkids or something like that. That's way more interesting and useful to me, giving while living, than just passing it on to a 68-year-old surviving child. That's a real individual conversation, and people with different marriages and second marriages and stepkids and all that stuff, that really changes also your decision making. So you got to really think that through.